All right, welcome back, everybody, to the deep dive. Today, we're going to be talking about Uber Eats.
Yeah.
Specifically, we're going to be looking at some market research analysis from cognitive market research. And this is really going to help us to kind of unpack the strategy behind Uber's, move into the food delivery market.
Yeah.
So we're going to look at how they, not only entered the market, but really thrived.
Right.
So I think what's really interesting here is, Uber Eats, they're kind of a case study in data-driven decision-making.
Absolutely.
Like, they didn't just randomly decide to get into food delivery.
Yeah, no, they didn't just roll the dice on this one.
So how did they kind of spot this opportunity in the first place?
Well, the research really highlights the fact that they already had this gold mine of data from their ride-hailing business.
Right.
And they were really smart about how they used that internal data.
Yeah.
So what they found was that there was a really big overlap
Uh-huh.
between people who were already using Uber for rides and people who were likely to order food delivery.
Oh, wow. Okay, so they saw the potential there.
Absolutely. And, it makes sense when you think about it. Someone who's already using Uber for convenience for transport,
Right.
they're probably also open to convenience in other areas of their life.
Yeah, like getting food delivered without having to cook. I mean, who doesn't love that?
Yeah, seriously. And the data actually showed that users were often searching for food options during or right after they finished a ride.
So that's really interesting. I mean, was that like an aha moment for them?
It had to be a pretty significant indicator.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just their internal data.
Okay.
External market research was also showing this growing demand for food delivery, especially in busy urban areas.
Right, where time is money.
Exactly. So you've got this perfect storm of their own data and these wider market trends
Yeah.
really showing that there was a big opportunity here.
So they had the potential, they had the data, but they didn't just like jump in with both feet.
No, they didn't.
What did they do?
So before they launched Uber Eats fully in 2014, they did these really smart pilot programs in a few cities.
Oh, like a test run.
Yeah, exactly. It was a way for them to test their assumptions about how users would engage with it, how interested restaurants would be,
Yeah.
and, figure out the logistics of actually making it all work.
Yeah, in a real world setting.
Yeah, before they went all in.
That's really smart. So it was like a de-risking strategy.
Exactly.
Okay, so they launched Uber Eats. And then I think what's really interesting is that they didn't have this one-size-fits-all approach to partnering with restaurants.
Right.
They were really focused on customization.
Yeah, they were super tailored in their approach.
Why was that so important?
Well, because you know what people want to eat, when they want to eat it, and what they're willing to pay for it.
Right.
It's going to be different in every region.
Totally, yeah.
So market research gave them insights into all these local differences.
Okay.
Whether it's food preferences, peak dining times, you know how price-sensitive people are.
Yeah.
And that really shaped their restaurant partnerships.
Can you give me some specific examples of that?
Sure. So let's think about dense urban areas.
Okay.
Speed and convenience are everything, right?
Yeah.
So in those areas, Uber Eats really prioritized partnerships with, fast food chains, quick service restaurants,
Okay.
places that can fulfill orders and get that food delivered quickly.
Right, because everyone's on the go.
Exactly. Now, in more suburban areas where you might have families ordering in for dinner, they focused on getting full-service restaurants on board.
Okay.
Places with larger portions, wider variety of cuisines.
Right, for family-style dining.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's about having the right restaurants, not just the most restaurants.
That's so smart.
Yeah. And they didn't just stop there.
Okay.
They were always using customer feedback to fine-tune those partnerships.
Oh, interesting. How?
They used data from customer orders and ratings
Okay.
to figure out what restaurants were popular in different areas, and that helped them make sure they were giving people what they actually wanted.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then there's the whole concept of virtual restaurants.
Oh, yeah. These are fascinating.
Yeah, this is where you can really see how they used market research to innovate.
Okay.
Research probably showed that there was a demand for certain cuisines or dishes in certain places.
Right.
Maybe there's a huge demand for a certain type of burger,
Yeah.
or there's a lack of good Thai food in a particular neighborhood.
I can relate to that.
So these virtual restaurants, which operate without a traditional dine-in space,
Right.
could then be set up to meet that demand
Okay.
with much lower overhead costs.
So it's like a lower risk way to test the market.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's cool.
And what's even more interesting is
Okay.
they could use this to try out new cuisines and concepts.
Mm-hmm.
So if a virtual taco place took off in an area,
Mm-hmm.
They could encourage existing restaurants to adopt that model,
Okay.
or even invest in dedicated kitchen spaces just for delivery.
That's a really smart way to do market testing.
It is.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, so we've talked about how they partnered with restaurants,
Uh,
but obviously a huge part of this is the actual delivery process.
yeah,
And the research highlights how important an efficient delivery network was for them.
absolutely. In this business, speed and reliability are key.
Right. The customer experience hinges on that.
Exactly. And market research played a big role in helping them optimize their logistics. They used data to make their delivery algorithms as efficient as possible.
Okay, so what exactly are these algorithms taking into account?
So we're talking about more than just the shortest distance on a map.
Okay.
These algorithms are crunching a ton of data in real time.
Yeah.
Things like traffic conditions,
Yeah.
how long it's going to take the restaurant to prepare the food,
Mm-hmm.
the availability of drivers in the area, and even things like parking conditions near the customer's location.
Wow, so they're really trying to account for every possible variable.
They are. It's super complex.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
But that's been a big part of their success.
Okay.
And they weren't just reacting to things as they happened.
Okay.
They were using predictive analytics to anticipate demand fluctuations.
Oh, wow. So looking ahead.
Yeah, they analyzed historical data, like ordering patterns on different days,
Mm-hmm.
weather forecasts, local events,
Okay.
to predict when there might be a surge in demand.
Like if there's a big football game happening.
Exactly. They might know that pizza orders are going to skyrocket in that neighborhood,
Right.
and that allows them to position drivers proactively
Okay.
so they can maintain those fast delivery times.
That's really smart.
It is.
And then, of course, we've all experienced this, dynamic pricing,
Oh, yeah.
especially during peak hours.
Surge pricing for food.
So how does market demand play into that?
Well, they use dynamic pricing to balance the supply of drivers with the demand for deliveries.
Okay.
So when there are more orders than drivers, prices go up.
Right.
This encourages more drivers to get on the road,
Right.
and it also makes sure that people who really need a delivery can still get one.
Right. Even if it costs a little more.
Exactly.
And I imagine that gives them a ton of data on how much people are willing to pay.
Exactly.
It does.
Does.
At different times.
Yeah, it gives them real-time insights into price sensitivity.
And of course, throughout all of this, they're relying on customer feedback.
Yeah, customer feedback is huge.
Tell me about that.
Every review and rating that customers leave,
Uh-huh.
that's data that they can use to constantly improve the delivery experience.
Okay.
So if customers are consistently complaining about long wait times at a certain restaurant,
Yeah.
or wrong orders, or problems communicating with drivers, Uber Eats can analyze that feedback and figure out how to fix those problems.
So it's a continuous improvement loop.
Exactly.
All right. So they've built this successful model in a bunch of local markets,
Yeah.
but their ambition was always global. How did they use market research to guide their international expansion?
So their global expansion wasn't just random. It was very carefully planned. They did a lot of research to see if food delivery would even be viable in different regions.
Right. So it's not just assuming that what works here will work everywhere.
Exactly.
So what kind of factors were they looking at?
A bunch of things.
Okay.
Things like smartphone ownership rates,
Uh-huh.
because you need people to have smartphones to use the app.
Right.
The density of urban areas.
Okay.
Because delivery services tend to work better in cities.
Mm-hmm.
The state of the existing restaurant supply chains.
Yeah.
And even the local culture around dining.
Oh, interesting. Like, do people even order takeout in this culture?
Exactly.
That's hard.
And then in markets where there were already existing food delivery companies,
Right.
they did something called competitive benchmarking.
Oh, okay.
They really studied the strengths and weaknesses of their competitors.
Yeah.
So maybe a competitor had a limited selection of restaurants,
Mm.
or they were known for being slow or expensive. Uber Eats could then use that information to position themselves strategically.
Okay, so like find the gaps in the market and fill those gaps.
Exactly.
So they're always kind of one step ahead.
They're trying to be.
Yeah, and they're using the data to do it.
Right.
So can you give some examples of how they tailored their approach in different regions?
Sure. So in places where speed was really important,
Okay.
they might invest heavily in optimizing their routing
Mm-hmm.
and offer incentives to drivers to ensure fast delivery.
Got it.
In other regions where price was more sensitive,
Mm-hmm.
they might offer discounts, loyalty programs,
Yeah,
or lower delivery fees.
to attract customers.
Exactly. It's all about adapting to the local context.
Yeah, makes sense.
And it wasn't just about the logistics and pricing.
Okay.
Their marketing campaigns had to be tailored too.
Right. You can't just use the same message everywhere.
Exactly. You have to understand the cultural nuances.
And again, they're using market research to figure that out. So it's clear that market research wasn't just a one-time thing for Uber Eats.
No, it's ongoing.
It's baked into their strategy.
Absolutely. It's how they stay competitive in this constantly changing market.
Right, because if you're not paying attention,
You'll get left behind.
so they're always gathering data,
Yes.
analyzing it, and adapting their strategies.
Exactly. It's a continuous cycle of learning and optimization.
And they're using a variety of methods for this.
Yeah, they're doing consumer surveys to check on satisfaction levels.
Okay.
They're analyzing how people are using the app.
Uh-huh.
They're getting feedback from restaurants.
Yeah.
It's all about staying informed.
So this constant research also allows them to spot new trends,
Right.
like grocery delivery or meal subscription services.
Yeah, and they can jump on those trends quickly.
Which helps them stay ahead of the competition.
Exactly. They're not afraid to try new things.
And they're using data to guide those decisions.
So to sum it all up,
Yeah.
Uber Eats' success is not an accident.
Right.
It's the result of a really smart and deeply integrated approach to market research.
They use it at every stage of their business.
From identifying the opportunity to tailoring their partnerships,
Uh-huh.
optimizing their delivery network,
Yeah.
expanding globally.
And staying ahead of the competition.
Market research is the secret ingredient.
It's really interesting, actually. The research pointed out that their first pilot program
Okay.
wasn't in some big U.S. city.
Uh-huh.
It was in Toronto in
Yeah.
2015.
I didn't know that.
So they were testing and refining their model
Right,
before they went global.
which is really smart.
And it obviously paid off.
Yeah, they clearly learned a lot from that pilot.
So when you look at Uber Eats' success and how they leverage data to achieve it,
Yeah.
it really makes you think about what data you might be overlooking in your own field.
Right.
Like what hidden opportunities or competitive advantages might be out there just waiting to be discovered.
Good question.
Something to think about.
Yeah, it is.
Thanks so much for this deep dive. It's been really insightful.
It's been a pleasure.
And to everyone listening, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.